And here we are again. Welcome everyone to the show. This is Franz Sidney, and we are in Create with Franz, the mindset podcast that helps you to find out how to create the life that you want at your own rules and ideas, using your own framework. And today we go from chronic pain we talked to fibromyalgia with our friend, now old friend, young old friend, Stephen Blake of Old2Go, who is now with a new shirt, Old Fat2Go. Yeah. Let's call it as it is. So today we're going to talk about dieting and mindset and how to lose the weight and why calories don't matter and how self-worth is important and how much does it cost to lose weight? Is it possible? How many diets do I have to do? All of these, obviously there will be lots of episodes if you really want to talk about all the details. But today we're going to have a really good idea with Steve of what's his program and how Stephen, guys, with the N in the end, how Stephen helps you to lose the weight for good, or even so the fat. You just called it as it is. So welcome to the show.
Thank you for inviting me again. Lovely.
Yeah.
And to be talking on a fresh topic as well.
Yes, it's a different topic and one that I'm really interested in as a nutritionist, because so many people come to me and say, I cannot do a diet for very long. I revert back to how I used to be before. Does that familiar to you? And does it sound familiar?
It's what got me into becoming a therapist. I originally sold a powdered diet that you mixed up and drank. And during that time, I'd always been interested in how people think and positive attitudes and all that sort of thing. And I was helping people for about 7.5, 8 years with that. There was a bit of an overlap when I started therapist. But I actually became a therapist because although the diet worked, I kept seeing the same people over and over again across those 8 years. And the first time it would work brilliantly. They'd lose the weight. I'd just lose touch with them. They'd put it back on, and you always put it back on plus a pound or more. And then I'd help them a second time, and it wouldn't be quite as fast losing the weight. So it'd be slower, and then they'd get down to the weight they wanted, and they'd disappear off again. And then if I saw them a third time, they really struggled on the diet, and they didn't stick with it. And so I realized during all this time that a lot of people I dealt with, and it was strange for me because the women that sold the same diet had about a 60-40 split, 60% women and 40% guys. And I had, I would say, at least 80% female. And I didn't think that would happen. I thought I would get the guys who didn't want to go to see the women who handed out the products and that. But that was the audience I had. And I realized, and I'd realized this a few years ago when I was in business, that most women lack the confidence they should have for their abilities, that they sort of downplay everything. And I noticed that when I was a manager of a large company and employing people, and when I was working in training and I used to interview people for the training, that women always put themselves down. And I realized this was a major factor in whether they stuck to the diet, if they felt good about themselves or not, about putting weight on. And so I went on this training course to learn a bit more about hypnotherapy and things like that, see if I could help people better. And it covered NLP. And I was so impressed with what I learned on that weekend, I decided to become a therapist and spent about £6,000 that I didn't have on training. So I've been a therapist for 12 years now. So when I got more into the helping people out of anxiety, and then I realized I could do physical pain as well. When I put all that together, a lot of people said, well, can we use what you do for fat? Can we use it for losing weight? And I said, well, you can, but it's sort of, you have to twist it around a bit. And then I got more and more requests for this. So I thought, well, it would be a shame to put all the 8 years of skills I got from helping people lose weight. I don't like that expression, by the way. But from the 8 years, it would be a shame to lose all the things that I'd built up and all that experience and knowledge and just let it go. So I put together Old Fat2Go, which I only launched about 2 years ago. And I only made it available to the people who trained in Old Pain2Go. because it's like Oldpain2Go, but it's, you know, taking it down the avenue of fat. And to keep in line with old things to go, I made it old fat to go, because I wanted to be absolutely blunt about what we're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
You see, if I had a magic wand and you said, and I said, what weight do you want to be? And you said, oh, I want to be 7 stone. And I waved a magic wand and your body didn't change at all, but your weight on the scales went down to 7 stone, you'd think I'd robbed you. It wouldn't matter what you weigh. So we're not talking about weight. And different people weigh different things because of muscle and bone mass and all the rest of it. So when we get these so-called ideal figures for what we should weigh, they're totally wrong. If somebody's got a lot of muscle, they need to weigh a lot more. And fat, for proportion and size of it, weighs 5 times what, muscle weighs 5 times what fat does for the same quantity.
Mm.
So if we put muscle on, we can still look the same, but we weigh a lot more. So I decided to put all this into one go, and I formed. I mean, I've just been looking back over it today to make sure I remembered it all, and it's a fabulous bit of kit. It's 24 videos about how your mind and body work together. So I'm sure you've got lots of questions to ask. So I'll shut up at this point, but I think that introduces it well.
Yes, it does. Thank you. So it makes sense. You do your own research and you find out things and you add. And of course, you have this method. So what would be different regarding your methods if you compare it to all the other, there are all these diets, the ketogenic diet, the Atkins diet, the low carb here, the vegan diet, the raw food diet. People embark on these special diets and some do very, very well. Other people do well for a while and then somehow the energy is not there with them anymore and then slowly slide back into the old ways. Why would a person want to approach this weight loss? We couldn't say loss because then if it's a loss, we want to find it again. I know this
Fat removal.
From Marie's appear, fat removal. Yeah, we are decreasing this fat. We don't want it. I mean, for example, I'm 44 kilos over 155 centimeters. So by any means, I should be 10 kilos heavier. However, when I gain weight, I only gain it on my hips.
Yes.
We don't go to my face.
Yeah, there's a reason for that as well.
So I want, because I'm a woman, the hormones go there. And so I can do anything I want, but to have a nice chubby faces, I would love to have, because I'm 58, I would love to have a really full face, but I don't, because before I get any fat here, it's going to go down there. And I'm like, uh-huh. And so just like me, there are different body types, and I'm sure you talk about the 5 body types. And
I don't.
You don't?
I talk about our mentality.
Yeah.
We have 5 different bodies, but I don't talk about if people are naturally slim or the.
Yeah, no. But I was just quoting literally from your site. I'm gonna have to. I'm reading here.
Yeah, no, that's fine. I even had to remind myself of what they are.
Yeah.
Because it's an invention I created, and the idea was that when we start a diet, usually what's happened is we're in our uncomfortable body. So we see a photo one day, or we see a reflection in a mirror, or we try and put some clothing on and it doesn't fit us. And it goes into this sort of, oh my God, look at me again. And then we have this regulatory thing within our system. And I think in our head, we have a thing called a no way body. And that is when you see somebody bigger than you, you go, well, I'm big, but there's no way I'm going to get that big. Yeah. Now, so that's your no way body. So in your head, you've got these 5 different bodies. You've got your uncomfortable, you've got your comfortable body, and the decided body and the fantasy body. And I'm going to go through all of those. So what happens when people came to see me to lose weight, as they say it, I would be looking at, are they just trying to move away from where they are now until they get comfortable again? So, and that's what usually happens, is people start moving away from it. Now, if you think of it like a fire, if you get too close to, a bonfire or something on bonfire night, and we're sort of in a cold area and we move towards the fire. But when we stand too close to the fire, suddenly it gets to that unbearable temperature. And we move away from something that's uncomfortable, and we move away, but we don't sort of go run off 100 yards. We move far enough that it's not uncomfortable anymore. And that's usually why diets don't work, because where we think we want to go to is what I call the fantasy body. So we remember something like, when I was 16, I think I was 8 stone wet through. I was skinny, but I was also muscular. So I had a probably skinnier the body than anybody who weighed 8 stone should have. Mm-hmm. But the rest of it was muscle. But and it looked good and everything else. I was fine, but I was only 16. So if I was to keep thinking, I want to get back to what I was like when I'm 16, well, I ain't going to be 16 again. I'm 70. So I'm not going to have that body. And to get that body would be too much hard work. And also, you burn a lot of energy off as a teenager doing various things, which I don't do anymore. So we've got to be realistic about this. But if you have somebody who wants to lose weight and they have this fantasy body of when they're 18 or whatever, that's when I was at my best, they're only going to lose because they're going to move away from their uncomfortable body. But as soon as they're going past the comfortable body, they're going to pop back in there, because the time and effort they've got to get there has been long and daunting, and they've had to consciously think about what not to eat, which makes us think about all the things we're missing. So it's been hard work. So when they get to the comfortable body again, they get dropped back in. So they never get to the fantasy body. And so they're moving away from the no way body. And when they're far enough away from it, it's cooled off, and they don't want to put that time and energy in it, or change their life, or stop drinking, or whatever it is they're doing. It's just easier to drop back in your comfortable. So it's like a pair of old slippers. It just, you get to the point where they don't fit you anymore, but then you go back to the comfortable slippers again, not the new pair or the pair that was designed for you when you were a child. So it's through understanding those body. Obviously, I do a lot more than this in the videos that I do, but that's the concept. It's to head towards a decided body. So you work out what body you would like now, but it has to be maintainable. So if you like to go for a glass of wine every night and you want to continue that, it isn't going to be the fantasy body. And it isn't going to be the body you actually really, really want, because you're not prepared to put that effort into it. So you have to think about not just getting to that point, but keeping it. And so it's got to be about the future. How do you want to be? And do you want to be living the rest of your life on restrictions or not? And that caused me to come up with the idea of it not being a conscious process about choosing what you eat, actually allowing your unconscious to do that.
Yes. Well, thank you. That explains a lot about this approach. So it's a different approach. And I like that you are outlining the fact that it has to be really a lifetime process, how we're going to live, because it took us maybe 20 years to get to a certain body shape, or to be fit or unfit, to be full of medications to cope with our problems. Because of course, when the diet isn't just right, we not only gain weight, but we gain problems, because maybe we might have a hip that is unbearably painful when we walk because there is too much weight. So all these problems pile up, and it takes a long while. We don't wake up in the morning, boom, 30 kilos over. No, we do it very gradually. So I would imagine that we have to have this gradual movements. Yes, we can have a session or two to change a mindset, but then what is going to sustain us to keep a sustainable way of eating and exercising for the next century or half century, however old we are,
Okay.
that's a big thing. I think we lose that momentum. So where would you want to approach all these angles? How do you start here? Where is your beginning point when you see somebody then?
This is the difference with what I do and everything else I've seen. And bear in mind that I used to see people who wanted to go on this particular diet I was on, but they'd had a gastric band. And this happened more than once. I mean, probably about 8 people approached me with a gastric band who wanted to go on this diet. And I said, well, what's the problem? Why isn't it working? Well, it worked for a bit, but then I found out I could just liquidize Mars bars. And so I started to see gastric banding as no different to what they used to do 100 years ago, which is they bind your mouth shut with, they wire your jaw up and tighten your mouth up so you couldn't eat. You had to push stuff in through the gaps of your teeth and that. And it's no cruder than that, honestly, because the majority of gastric banding, I think, only works because it's a shock to the system of you're having a life-changing operation that may even kill you. So you've now made a massive decision not to remain that weight. And I think you could just ask the unconscious that and give it really good, strong directions, and it would do that anyway. You don't have to go through something that might kill you. And certainly with gastric banding, it restricts your life totally. You can't go out for a meal anymore. You can't do anything like that. So it's not a good idea. And I don't even like the hypnobanding because to me, if you're a good hypnotherapist, you can help people anyway without having to go to that extreme of pretending they've got something that doesn't work in real life. Not for everybody. So it would have to be drastic before somebody actually has to have their stomach stapled or whatever and shrink it down. And the reason for this is your stomach is only about that big. So anybody who's watching, obviously not the listeners, but get your hands and cup them and then almost join them together with an inch or 2 gap. That's the size of your stomach. It's not big. It's not big at all. And so when we have a meal, if you could liquidize that meal and it would fill more than 2 cups up, you're eating too much in one go. Because this is the pre-bit to all the rest of the digestive system that sorts it out, all your bowels and everything else. So your stomach is a processing thing to get it ready for going further down. And if you're chewing the food, it also adds things that break the food down before it even starts getting there. So you're chopping it to bits anyway. You're adding this process that actually helps it breaks down. Your stomach breaks it down. And when it's broken down, it passes to your bowels. Now, or intestines and everything else. So if you force more than your stomach can hold in any one meal, it's got to force it into your intestines before it's ready, before it's fully digested enough to then extract everything that's needed out of it. And this is why we overeat, is because we're getting this unprocessed food for us. And whilst it's doing that, it's more difficult to extract the vitamins, minerals, and nutrients that it does. But it's also not prepared for doing what it's doing. And so your body then cries out for food that's got vitamins, minerals, and nutrients in it. Because the stomach can't work out what was good in there if it's forcing it through quickly. So when we eat in smaller quantities and we give it time, so we eat slower, we give it time between courses of meals, and we actually don't put in any more in any one go than what will fill the stomach. The body has natural ways of working out calories, vitamins, minerals, and nutrients, but it doesn't particularly bother about calories. It actually looks for the vitamins, minerals, and nutrients. So when you eat junk food and you fill yourself up to it, now, if you ever feel full before you stop eating, there's a 10-minute process of where the body has to find out if you're full or not. So if you eat until you're full, you've already eaten 10 minutes more worth of food than what you could have. So you should never eat until full, because wait that 10 minutes for the process. And I think people will recognize this. If you ever go for a restaurant and you have a starter and then you have the main course, and they come straight away after clearing the plates and offer you a pudding, you have it. If they wait 15 to 20 minutes and they come and ask you if you want a pudding, by this time you've digested it, the brain's worked out you're full, and then usually you say, I would have liked one, but no, I don't think I want one now.
Yeah.
And that's why in restaurants they're very quick to come back with the pudding menu. Yeah. And sort of almost force you into this.
They have a training, don't they? They know that the hypothalamus will send the signal in 20 minutes. So that's it. You're full in 20 minutes. So we have to rush this.
Rush round. And the other thing that happens is we get things like other people encourage you to do it by the fact that your partner will say, oh, I won't have one, but I'll have a bit of your pudding. And you go, I don't really want a half a pudding. I want a full pudding. So you end up buying one each. So there's things like that. And there's lots of outside pressure on that. So my idea was, why don't we pass it to the unconscious that understands about vitamins, minerals, and nutrients? And instead of worrying about calories, when we've got sufficient vitamin, minerals, and nutrients, it will tell us. Now, if you eat junk food, even though you've crammed yourself full, the brain will say, but we didn't get much in the way of vitamins, minerals, and nutrients. I'm going to make you hungry. Now, it hopes that you change your habit and eat something decent this time, but you don't. You eat junk food again. And this is why junk food is fattening. It's not purely because it's fattening. It's because the quantities you eat because you feel hungry. And things make you feel hungry, and they're the wrong things if it's making you feel hungry when you've ate something. That's crazy. And we have manufacturers to blame for this, because the perfect selling food, the one where you can't have one biscuit, you have to have the whole packet, is something that's 50% sugar and 50% fat. It's the golden ratio, they call it. And all the food companies know this. If they can get near that golden ratio, they'll sell more because you'll eat more.
Yeah, very addictive, aren't they?
Yeah, and it is an addiction. It's a sugar addiction. And I've just been weaning myself off sugar. I only have one sugar in a tea, that's it. But as I go off it, I sort of I'm almost craving for it. So I went over to honey. I don't think that's a lot better, but I got down to like half a little bit of honey in it, because I think we have this sort of, oh, I'm running low on sugar, I feel a bit jittery and all that. And we should eat something sensible then, instead of quick fuel. So it's about allowing the body to take over. Now, the interesting thing is, when I created this and I was putting all the lessons together, I came out of this idea of we let the unconscious take over. And it knows what's coming in, and it knows whether it's rubbish or not. And it can make you like the things that give you the vitamins, nutrients, and all the rest of it that you need. And it can start to put you off things that don't contain much of that. And this is what we were like naturally before factory foods and that. You see, fruit and vegetables have different colours. Now, if you see a troop of monkeys, for instance, going to a tree where there's bananas, they'll feast on bananas, but they won't fill themselves up just on bananas. When they've had enough, it's also about not stripping the tree. So there's something there when they need it again. But they'll move on to something else, some other fruit and vegetables and things that have different colours. Because we know naturally that different colours mean there's different ingredients in it. And so our brain knows, our primitive brain knows what's good for us. It knows to have a mixture and variety of things to get what we need for a body. And also you become more aware when you get pregnant, because then you have a craving for a particular thing. And it's trying to get that, it might be low in iron or something, and you'll eat something that's totally unsuitable, but it's got iron in it. So I thought, and in the same way I think about everything else, pain can go by actually saying, hey, I don't need this. Why are you giving me it? It serves no purpose. And mental processes that no longer serve you can be gone in the same way. Why is this running? Oh, it's for that reason. Well, that reason doesn't exist anymore. I'll let go of it. And it's the same with the brain for this part of it. It can help you to start to like things that are good for you and put you off the things that aren't. So for a while, I had terrible acid reflux at night. And I didn't notice it during the day, but when I went to bed at night, when I laid down, I'd get this acid reflux and it would come up the throat a bit. And sometimes I'd even get to the point of feeling sick with it. And if I turned over in the night, it would wake me up because obviously you're moving your stomach around and the sphincters and all that open up a little bit, and it was burning my throat. And when I invented this, about a week later, I turned over in the night and I did wake myself up a bit. And it was like, oh, I'm going to get that acid reflux. And then it didn't happen. And then as I sort of came around more, I went, but I haven't had this all week. What's changed? And I was racking my brain for about 10 minutes and I went, do you know, I haven't had chocolate this week. And I love chocolate. I can eat a whole packet of chocolate biscuits in one go, or I could. And I recognized that even if we have them in the house, I couldn't have things in the house because I would just eat the whole lot. And we'd had chocolate in the house that week and I hadn't even touched it. But there wasn't this, oh, I mustn't, I can't do it, I want to lose weight. It literally was my unconscious took over and it said, this is what causes the acid reflux, Stephen. You've given me permission to stop you doing anything that's harmful or make it down to low quantities. So I can still enjoy chocolate, and I still do now, but I'll have one biscuit and I've had enough. And there's no compulsion anymore. In the same way that I got rid of drinking wine, I started to drink far too much wine. And I decided one day, and I just told my unconscious, I'm stopping drinking. Can you help me? And I've never touched drink since. And that's 7 years now. But there's not what everybody else goes through, which is I've given something up, therefore I really crave it. And that's because you're constantly thinking of the thing. And even if you put don't in front of it, I mustn't have that, you're still thinking about the thing, which makes you think that you're about to have it, which gives you all those pleasant sensations you got from wine or from chocolate or whatever. It prepares your stomach for taking it in. And then you're lost because you then consciously have to fight these things. So the process I put together is not about consciously fighting anymore. You literally make decisions about what you want in your life and you let your unconscious take over, working with the body, knowing far more than you do, knowing if things are good or harmful. And I reinvented the word treat. It's now called flab flub. Because you know what people are like. When you say you're on a diet, they offer you a cream bun. Now, if you like cream buns, just tell everybody you're on a diet. They'll buy you one. It's a strange thing that anybody who can't lose weight will try and make sure you can't either by offering you the very thing that you know you desire and they know you desire. And then they can say, that didn't work, did it? You see, I didn't waste my time going on that diet. You wasted your time going on that diet. Yeah. So people offer you these treats. And also we might think when we're 3 or 4 weeks into a diet that's quite bland, I could just eat a cream bun or chocolate biscuit or whatever. And I'll just have a treat. Now, to me, if you go to your car and you say, I bet you're sick of petrol, I'm going to fill you up with diesel today. And it's a bit cheaper. That's going to be wonderful. Please don't do it. But that's what we're doing with the body. We're putting something in. We call it a treat. It's not a treat. It's harmful to us. It's putting that weight on that we don't like and so on. So to get there, the other thing is that we have to we have to be kind to ourselves, and we have to be a bit more pleasant to ourselves than we are. So people will look in the mirror and say, I'm bloody fat. Oh, I'm fat. It's awful. Yeah. And it should be, well, that's me in the mirror. And how have I got to this size? What size do I want to be? What am I going to do about it? But if you berate yourself, it makes you want to eat. It's a really strange thing. And I've tried all sorts of things with people. And if you keep repeating, I'm fat, I'm fat, I'm fat, like I had a client once who said that, I couldn't convince her to stop saying it. So one day I just said to her, yeah, you are. That's horrible how fat you are. And she went, you what? And she was like disgusted. And I said, now, that was just a trick. I don't think you're fat. But look how bad you felt when I said you were. How do you think you feel when you say it to yourself? You've actually done what I just did there as an experiment, but you do it every day, 100 times a day. How do you think you feel because of what you're saying in your head? Oh, well, you know. And then she even said, well, you know, I'm fat. And I said, well, there's a person I know who's bigger than you, and you've never called her fat. And she went, but she isn't fat. I said, okay. The next time I saw this woman, I got 2 photos. I superimposed one over the other. And she was half the size. And I said, so you've got to call this other person fat then. I'm going to tell them. And she said, I can't do that. I'm not. I'm bigger than them. I said, I've just proved it. That's a cutout of you two over the top of each. She wouldn't have it. She just wouldn't have it. That she thought of this other person as okay. And it didn't matter that she was bigger in size. And I said, so don't you think people will see you like that? They're not that worried. You know, not everybody you see wants to go, oh, that's somebody I would want to make love with and see them naked. No, you're friends with people. We don't care what size and shape our friends are. It doesn't matter. You know? So we put too much emphasis. And if we think we look revolting, we project that onto everybody else, that they must think we look revolting. So if you change your attitude that it doesn't matter, what matters is how I feel about myself. And that's not just changing the body, that's changing your head as well. And so I've got some recordings that people can go to. If you go to the oldpain2go.com website and go to the academy, there's 3 things about self-worth where you can learn how to deal with your own self-worth and make it higher. And it explains how you've got low from it. So this is a whole new look at the what's called weight loss. Trudy phrases it in a wonderful way. I'm just trying to think what it is. It's, I've released 4 pounds this week. Because if you say I've lost it, it's sort of like we always look for things that we've lost, don't we? And it's like we want them back. So she says, I've released 4 pounds this week. And then you can go, wow. And it's not saying, well, I'm going back there. And then even things like the wardrobe. If you've got a wardrobe of clothes larger than you are now, but you want to get slimmer, throw them away. The very fact of keeping them is a mental attitude that I will need them again. Which means you can put on weight and it doesn't matter because it's not going to cost you a whole new wardrobe because you've already got the big clothes. Throw the damn things away. Give them to a charity shop. Do something with them. If you're determined to not be bigger than you are now and that you're going to get slimmer, that is a very good message to your unconscious. I can't get bigger than this now. I've got no clothes that fit me. And I'm not buying new clothes in the bigger size. Yeah. I'm not bloody going there and buying these new clothes in a bigger size. I'm going to get slimmer. End of story. Yeah. So there's so many aspects to it. And this is why there's 24 lessons there.
Yeah. I give you a break so you can get some water. Because
yes, thank you.
Some talking there, isn't it? Guys, I hope you are listening very carefully because, you know, everyone has the perfect diet and the perfect, but we really want to talk about how the mind is going to work this out, because otherwise, doesn't matter which diet you're doing, even if it's the most beautiful one, if you really think yourself very lowly and you have a bad self-confidence level crashing down the floor, and you, oh, I can't do this. Or some other people, what they do, they stop all the food and they start drinking because they need something. And when you have alcohol, that's a lot of sugar going there. And
Absolutely.
I'm in quite a few groups of people who are alcoholics, and they are so proud when they post the pictures after a couple of weeks without all this alcohol. Their skin that was all full of red patches is now clearing up.
Yeah.
And it's so incredible, and this is a way that we self-medicate because we feel bad, because we cannot achieve, because we go back to that. But the thing is, our society is designed with a huge pressure on everyone to get drunk, to enjoy celebrating with food, to celebrate with mostly junk food. Even when you go and buy food, sometimes the processed food is so cheap that you are tempted to have that instead of proper food because you don't know maybe how to cook from scratch. And literally, I always like, we're going to stop sugar this month. And when people arrive, oh, we got a little treat for you, and they give you biscuits. And then you go to a celebration of some sort, or you go to a wedding, you go to somebody get baptized, or go to a concert, and what do they give you? They're going to give you sugar. So it's very difficult between the sugar and the drinks to always say no. But so what could a person do? Let's say they've done your program. They have released all the weight that is okay for their body to release, so they're healthy and they're energetic and they're good. And now they have a new diet, so they know that maybe for their own body, because everyone is different, so we all have a different way of eating, and the quantities, the qualities are different because we have different gut flora, different environment, different habits, different genetics, etc. That's fine, so we're all different. But how do these clients then, after releasing the weight, how do they deal with these crowds that are pushing all the time and say, right, now have this, because the weight is gone. So what would be your reason for saying no to all this stuff without offending others? How do you tackle that?
Okay. We have to understand that if people force food on you, they're not doing it for you. They're doing it for themselves. And so as your diet changes, you'll want less food. You'll want the right sort of food that tastes nice. And this is the whole thing. We should enjoy food. We move away from enjoying food because we've been so trained with all this factory produced stuff that actually we've developed the wrong taste. And like you say, sugar, you see, if we celebrate with a cake or food or wine, we're drinking sugar. It's all sugar. So once we get away from that and we're doing what we want to do, and being the right size for what you want to be, and I'm not talking about slim or whatever, being a right healthy size for you is how you want to stay. And so there's two things there. First of all, you've got to have this self-love. You've got to say, why would I want to spoil my body because somebody else wants me to be as big as they are? Because they can't be bothered doing this. So they want to fatten me up so they can prove I failed. So they're trying to make me fail. Now, then you can have a different attitude. And you need to be assertive with people who try and pressurize you to do things. I mean, as a therapist, I've also dealt with this with smoking. You give up smoking, you tell people you give up smoking, they offer you a cigarette. That is disgusting. And I haven't thought about this with food, but I did with smoking. And I used to say to people, because I'm a hypnotherapist as well, I used to say, look, when you leave here, people are going to offer you cigarettes, your friends and all that don't know you've given up yet. And instead of saying I've stopped, you say I don't smoke. Because people don't keep shoving cigarettes on you if you don't smoke. So you just say, I don't eat that anymore. So, and I said, look, if somebody keeps offering you cigarettes, what you do is you go, okay, then you take one off them and then you pretend you've gone into a trance and then you just snap the cigarette in half and throw it on the floor. And then when they look at you, you go, what just happened? like you didn't know, you see. And they go, oh, okay. Now they're wary of offering you another cigarette. So, but if they do, you do the same again. You just pretend you got into a trance. You rip the cigarette in, and it's a lot of fun. You rip the cigarette in half, you throw it on the floor. And they go, oh my God. And then they say, Fred, come over here. Stephen's given up smoke. Offer him a cigarette. It's really funny. And he offers me a cigarette. So I go, snap, drop it on the floor. He's not going to offer me any more cigarettes. They're about 50 pence each. So if we say to people, look, I appreciate that you would like me to eat that, but I don't want to. Do you really want to try and force me to eat this food? Well, no, but I've made it, and I made it with love, and I care for you and all that. Well, you can show me love in other ways. I don't need to eat your cake. I don't want to eat your cake. I wouldn't enjoy eating your cake. Is that really what you want to force on me? And just keep throwing it back to them. Why are you forcing me to do something? But to do that, you have to be confident in your own skin that you can be assertive, because assertiveness and aggression, often people think are the same thing. Aggression is if I tell you to do something you don't want to do, that's aggression. If I say, I'm not going to do what you want me to do, that's assertion. Yeah. And why should I do what you want me to do? I'm not a child anymore. And therefore, we usually have this pressure from our parents or whatever. You know, your mother that likes baking will bring you this baking round and go, you know, here you are, I've made you cake. But you know, mother, I'm on a diet at the moment. Now, you see, there's a big difference between, but I've got to the weight I want and I'm eating differently now. And you have to appreciate that. And it's the same. You don't force meat on vegetarians. Yeah, a vegetarian will say, but I don't eat meat. And they'll even say, but you cook that in the, or you've had it on the same plate as that meat. I can't eat it. But they're quite happy to stand up for their rights. So you've got to be the same. This is what I eat now. This is how I eat. I really enjoy it. I wouldn't enjoy what you're giving me, however nice it was and however nice I thought it in the past. I wouldn't eat it. Well, I'll just leave it here. Well, you can do, but it will go in the bin when you leave. Wouldn't you rather give it to somebody who really enjoy it? But I made it with love. But you can show me love in other ways.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I appreciate you did it with love and you care for me, but you can show me that other ways, not with a cake.
So true.
Yeah.
So true. And this is the same for alcohol. And I remember reading about people trying to stop drinking alcohol all the time. And then maybe at home where they have stopped having 2 or 3 bottles in the night. Then maybe they go out or they visit a friend and the friend is going for a really tough time and the friend is drinking. And so friend goes, here we go. And the person goes, well, this person here is going through such and such time with such and such problem. I felt I couldn't really say no. And so I drank as well. And I'm like, I wouldn't do that. I'm teetotal. I don't drink alcohol and off. So I would just say, well, thank you so much. like myself, like for example, many, many years ago, I was teaching an Italian class for adult education. And at the end of the year, some students gave me cards and gifts. And I was like, oh, that is so nice of you. And one came with a huge smile and she goes, here we go. And she gave me a nice bottle of wine. And I don't drink wine. So I said, oh, thank you so much. And then another student said, oh, but Franz doesn't drink wine. And the previous student goes, oh, I'm so sorry. I said, don't worry, because I have friends and I can give it to them because they drink. But thank you so much for thinking about me. But that didn't mean I was going to open the bottle and drink the wine, because for me, because of my religion, I don't drink wine. And also because it's very unhealthy, in my humble opinion. Everyone has his own opinion about wine. That's fine. I do like grapes, see? And so people have stopped offering me because they know. I'm just going to say, no, thank you.
And we're not trying to force anything on anybody else. We're not forcing I've got Slim doing this way. You must do this way.
Yeah, no.
You mustn't eat that cake. We're not doing that at all. So why should anybody be bothered about what we're doing?
Mm-hmm.
And it doesn't really matter what they think. It's nothing to do with you.
No, it's our body. We will have to live with the problems that we cause. What happened then if you go on a diet and maybe you start skipping meals? Maybe you are quite fit. maybe you're even an athlete, but you realize there's something here coming up, and you think, well, maybe I don't know how I'm putting on weight again, but I'm eating the same as usual. Maybe mid-50s typical person, so you're not fat at all. Then you say, right, I'm gonna have no breakfast. I'm gonna have just an apple for lunch, and then I'm gonna have dinner about 5 o'clock, and then I'm done. And then you see the weight is there, and I was thinking, aren't we telling the body now we are in starvation mode?
Oh, absolutely. So starvation mode is literally the fact that, and this is why every time you go on a diet, if you stop it, if you stop it suddenly, then the body still thinks it's winter time and there's no food available. So what you eat from then onwards, it says, well, we need to store this because it's still winter and things aren't plentiful. You must have come across somebody else's store. So it then piles the weight on by actually, even though you might be eating less calories than what you're burning, it still tries to save some of them. So your body's metabolic rate changes. And it means that you don't burn the energy at the same rate. So you're still the same size and everything else, but if it starts lowering that metabolic rate, it's not burning those calories in the same way. In the same way that some people seem to be naturally slim, but their metabolic rate's quite high and they're burning it off as heat. So they're doing something, or even our mental processes burn about 40% of our calories. So even if you're a big thinker, you're burning up the calories in the brain. Now, anytime we have excess calories, the body has to decide what to do with it. Now, if you're very energetic in that, it might just temporarily store it till the next day. But if you're a bit sluggish, it's just going to find a fat cell to put it into, and it expands the fat cells. Now, I've never found out whether we get more fat cells or it's just that the fat cells expand out so they look more. I don't know which way around that is. But there's another issue here. Fat cells store the toxins from our body. And it's our protective way of actually, excuse me, taking in toxins. And if we haven't got time to release them that day, then we take some more the next day, they build up. So when there's an overload of toxins the body can't deal with that day, it pushes it into a fat cell. So if you don't drink enough water, it doesn't allow it to flush the body out, which means it keeps putting these toxins into fat cells to store them. So if you take a lot of water intake and you're drinking water on a regular basis, now you can't, say, oh, I need 2 gallons and drink it all in one go. You kill yourself through lack of electrolytes. But it's thought to be a good 8-ounce glass of water every hour is really good for you. And I used to have a saying when I help people with the diet that the more you drink, the more you shrink. And if somebody came to me one week and they're regularly losing 2 or 3 pounds and they're down to half a pound, I'd say, well, what's done different? I'd say, oh, I follow the diet, so I know exactly how many calories they've had. And I'd say, have you been keeping up with your water intake? And they'd always say, well, no, I got a bit slack with it this week. I was doing this job and, and I didn't take any water with me. And I'd go, well, that's what it is. And they'd up the water intake next week and they'd get back to where they should be. So if you don't drink enough fluids, now there's some fluids that don't help. If you're taking wine, you're adding calories and it's not helpful. And if you're taking tea and coffee, they're diuretic. So you actually pee out more than you take in. Now, my theory is this, and because I help people with a diet product, so I knew exactly how many calories they had that week, I would be able to monitor what's happening. And the first week, it would be if somebody's going to carry on at like £3 a week loss, the first week they'd lose 5 pounds. They'd say, this is a brilliant diet. Oh, wonderful. And I'd say, you've been drinking the water and everything? They go, yes. And I go, you won't get that next week. Now, if we don't drink much in the way of water, and most people don't drink anywhere near the quantity of water they should, they drink teas and coffees and all the other things. But if you don't drink anywhere near that quantity, here's what I think happens. We've still got this primitive bit of the brain, and we didn't live next to taps. We didn't have them in a house. We didn't even have a house. we would have to go and find water. We would have to take water on board, and then we might be a day or two before we could get back to that water supply. So we get water retentive, and that's stored all around the body in various areas. Now, when we need water, eventually it will extract it out of those areas. So as a natural survival system, we're carrying around like a rucksack with £5 of water in it. It takes a bit of accessing it. You know, if you feel thirsty, you don't just suddenly get it from where it's stored. But if you've got desperate situations, you can last a day or so without water, probably 2 days. So it can extract it from the body. Now, if you're not taking enough water, also you get constipated. Because here's the thing that you'll be revolted by. If the body can't get water, it will extract it from your poo and use that as your water supply. So if you start taking the right amount of water, what happens is in the first week, this £5 water supply reserve tank goes, why am I needed? They obviously live next to a tap. It's fine. I don't have to worry about this reserve. So it lets the reserve go, or lets a lot of the reserve go in the first week. This is why you can't keep up the same thing week after week after week. Now, if you let it slip for a week, the reserve starts to come back again. So this is why we suddenly put on weight at the end of diets, because we're not looking after the water, and we suddenly lose it at the beginning because we are drinking enough water. So there's a bit of a clue there to keep drinking water. And you can drink cold or hot water, it doesn't matter. But it's still helpful to the body because it allows it to flush out the toxin that go around your system and not overload your system with toxic things that are being released. So if you didn't drink enough water, it won't release the toxin from the fat cell. Now, if the fat cell is protecting the toxin, it's not going to release the fat if the toxin's still in there. So this is why we get stubborn areas where we hold on to fat. Then we got the difference between the sexes, is that females can have babies. And because they can have babies, what it's going to do is it's going to put storage whereby if you get pregnant when you're not eating much, when there's a bit of a drought or things are going on and there's no food, you've got to have storage that's difficult to get rid of, because then it can use that for the baby. So that's why women put it around the hips. And why the hips? Because if you had fat in your face, all over your face, and it bloated up till it was huge to carry enough fat, you'd be top heavy and you won't be able to do what you're supposed to. But if you put it around your hips, you can run, you can do anything. It doesn't hinder you. So it's the perfect place for storing fat in case you get pregnant. Yeah. And it doesn't know whether you can get pregnant or not, but you're female, so you're going to have this fat. And it's a good thing as well, because then it makes women different to guys, and we can look and see somebody's female and be attracted to them because they've got curves in all the right places. Yeah. So it's not and we do have to have a certain amount of fat on the body. I don't know percentage, perhaps you might do, Franz, but there's a certain amount of fat. Yeah.
So that's very interesting. Everyone has different views and opinions on how much water we should have. And also that changes depending on the type of diet. So if you have a lot of fresh, raw food, you do not need to drink too much water, because you're having the proper water from a cucumber, from a pineapple, from whatever, because they are water rich and the water has vitamins and minerals and whatever. But if you eat a lot of, I don't know, meat or processed food and dry stuff, you will see how much more water your body needs. So there are lots of theories. So I recommend everyone, we're not medical professionals as such. We cannot prescribe or diagnose anything. So we recommend that you look up in a medical website how much water, how much fat a person needs. I so wanted to go over and over, but I want to ask one last question.
Yes, okay.
Because one of the points, number 12 in your website, talks about not trying to sleep. And it says, lacking sleep is a big factor in fat storage. Yeah. Just as a trailer, would you be able to tell us something about that? because I know a lot of people are interested. They go, I can't sleep at
Yeah,
all. A
well,
baby keeps you awake, and then I'm just, I don't know.
yeah. There's I deal with sleep problems a lot, not just related with weight. And one of the issues is that people don't understand this thing called trying. So trying is, if I said to you, if we worked in the same office and I said, can you have that document on my desk for 4 o'clock? And you said, I'll try. I would have no expectation of having that document on my desk, because what you're actually saying is, I think that's impossible, but I'll put a lot of effort in. But you're putting a lot of effort in without the expectation of the result. So it's all right after something's happened to say, I tried my best. That's fine, because that's after the fact. But if in front of something you try, you're putting a lot of energy in, and you want to be seen to be putting a lot of energy in, because you're going to end up with an excuse of why it didn't happen. So if we try to sleep, we're actually not believing that we're going to sleep, and we're trying, so we're tensing up to get to sleep. And we can do this, I've got to be up at 5 a.m, I've got to get to sleep, and we're tense. And sleeping is the exact opposite. Sleeping is letting go. So you cannot, I've had lots of people say, but I really tried to sleep. And it's like, well, you can't. If you've got that attitude towards sleeping that you're trying, it's not going to happen. You've got to let go. And I can't cover it here, but there's ways around that, of actually talking to your unconscious and just passing it to it and say, and if you're worried about something, you can pass it to your unconscious. You say, I don't want to be puzzling this out all night. I'll leave it to you. You give me an answer in the morning. I'm going to sleep now. And you let go, and then you drop off to sleep. And it's really quick. And it's really easy. I'm 2 minutes before I go to sleep at the most. In fact, Trudy will say that, she'll say, you're snoring. And I've only had my head on the pillow a minute. And she'll go, you're snoring. I'll go, I can't be. I haven't gone to sleep yet. And she goes, but you're snoring. And I know I must be asleep because I'd hear it if I was awake. So it just is letting go. And all of life, all our problems, everything else is not about storing them up. It's about letting them go. And you can't force them out. You can only let them go. So I explain all that in what I do, and also with my pain work, and also with the thing I'll be launching soon, which is old stuff to let go, which will be all about anxiety and things like that.
Yes, thank you. And I remember I think it was the chronic pain episode, we talked also about, no, maybe we had about fibromyalgia, chronic fatigue. I think in one of the 2 episodes, we did talk about sleep a little bit. And so sleep is something that, many people lack for many reasons. So it's important to talk about it in the context of weight releasing, because it's important to balance all the parts of our life and not just the food. So because we've already been now about an hour, so we're gonna have to end the episode, because we know attention span lacks, and this is enough for 2 episodes of my podcast. So I might have to cut the audio podcast as such and keep this video whole, because of being a very long episode. And so useful. I found it really informative. And I want to thank you, Stephen, for being my guest again.
Thank you. It's been wonderful. It's always great talking with you.
Yeah. Well, I hope that I'm a good host and I ask good questions. But please, everyone, when we publish this video, when you watch the video or listen to the podcast, if you have any other question that might pop into your mind, after listening or sharing with somebody, even go back to one item, just feel free to contact me or Stephen and ask anything you would like, because we are just here to help you. We just want to be able to create this life that you want by being the person you want to be, exploring the opportunities, and why not explore the opportunities of being a little bit fitter and more able to move around. And some people have put on weight because they have chronic disease or because they had an accident, they can't walk, it's too painful. So there are loads, it's a very wide variety of places where it isn't just about eating less, but also seeing I can't move. So if you have any questions and if you would like some suggestions, feel free to talk to Stephen. We will post again all the links for Oldpain2Go and Old Fat2Go, but if you Google them, you will find them. Yeah.
Thank you.
So thank you, Stephen, for being here with us. And you guys, thank you so much for being with us this 1 hour long episode. Thank you for your patience. If you like this episode, please share it with your friends and write a good review for me on Create with Franz on Apple Podcast, because it's so good that it helps my channel to grow. Thank you so much. Take care, everyone. I'll see you soon. Bye-bye.